the weirdness in you, the spark of insanity that makes you you is so valuable to this world. Don't hide it.
We're tired of the rules, tired of the shame, tired of pretending it's all the same. We're tired of the hustle that cuts us in two. We're tired, but we're stronger. We're breaking on through. We're tired as fuck, but we won't back down. We're tired as fuck, still owning this town.
Welcome back into Tired as Fuck. In these intro episodes, we have been sharing our origin stories, so how we got together collectively, and then our individual backstories, the big moments, the hard shit that we've gone through, and things that we're still processing, and all the awakenings that have brought us together and brought us to like the greatness that you see before you today. So Courtney and I have shared our individual origin stories, and we've talked about how we became so damn amazing. And today we've come to the third in our triad, Sandra. Sandra's going to share how she became so fucking amazing and give us a little backstory, tell us who she is, why she's so wonderful. And so I'm going to let her get started. Sit back and relax, everybody. Let's go.
Woohoo! Thank you. I'll start with a little bit of background about me. I grew up in a very small Texas town, 800 people in it. So, and I was probably related by blood or marriage to about half of them, which is something that happens in small towns in Texas. And also I was a smart kid. I was reading at 3.5. People didn't believe, but my mom would give me books and show it off. By the time I got to kindergarten, I knew how to read and write already. So I wasn't learning all of that. But I did, because I was left-handed, I wrote backwards. For that reason, and because I had a speech impediment, people thought that I was slow, right? Because, you know, I would close that book by the time somebody else had read 2 pages because I'd read the whole thing. And I ended up in classes like, classes for people who were struggling. And I did absolutely terrible in those because there was nothing for me to do.
You're bored.
And yeah, I'm very, very bored. So somewhere in like 1st or 2nd grade, they gave me a test, found out that I was actually reading, at like a 7th grade level already. And then they just moved me into my own little like pod of learning so that everywhere I went, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all the way up through high school, there was always something that was literally just being kind of like, give Sandra something to do kind of situations in class. And you'd think that this is a good thing, but it really does isolate you as a person, right? Not only was I a smart kid, but I was a woman, a girl, and nobody knew what to do with a smart girl. Nobody knew at all.
How dare you be a smart girl?
Yeah, how dare I be smart? How dare I ask questions? Or how dare I correct something? I did not realize at the time that some people correct people as a power move. I don't do that. I always was like, oh, this is about collective understanding. So I would share something. The one that I remember the most is I went home and was using the term fungi. I said, we learned about fungi today. And my mom corrected me that it was fungi. So we looked it up in the dictionary. Sure enough, that's how I read it the next day. And I corrected the teacher and she sent me in the hall. And I got sent to the principal's office for talking back to the teacher. If I pleased the teachers would then say, why can't you all be more like Sandra? Which, of course, ostracized me from the kids. And if I pleased the kids, the adults would say, you should know better. You should have done better. You're smarter than this. And that's kind of how I grew up. I also...
Like, nowhere was safe.
Yeah. No, and I never knew the right things to do. Like I said, I know now that I'm autistic, and that was kind of like the last brick to fall into place for me that helped me understand my young adulthood and all of that. But I just never felt like I was getting things right. If I said something to somebody, I was always just a little wrong, a little off, and I never could figure out why. So I just felt very isolated. I was interested in things that other people weren't interested. I was not interested in the things that little girls were interested in. I wasn't interested in dresses and dolls and all of that. So it was just a kind of isolating time period. And I'm also, to this day, I think the only person I know that got sent into the hall in Sunday school for asking questions.
In another episode, I'll share my
Yeah.
Sunday school drama.
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God, I
it's
love
just
it.
that kind of thing. And this little
Yeah.
town had no idea what to do with me. And I had no idea what to do with it. I didn't fit, and I still would not fit in that case because I just was not a small town mentality. My parents both were. My parents loved living in a small place. They loved knowing everybody. They loved all of that other kind of stuff. And that works really well if you share interests
Yeah.
with
Right.
people in that area, and that's wonderful. But for me, like, I didn't share interests. I didn't have anybody to talk to about the things that fascinated me. And not only that, the things that did fascinate me, like different music and scary books and horror movies and, some of the music that I really liked and all of that when I was a teenager were the kinds of things that in the 80s were considered not just potentially damaging, but evil. Like,
Right.
literally flat out evil.
Right.
I grew up during the Satanic Panic. I had a D&D book, and I remember to this day somebody snatching that out of my hands at school and tearing it up in front of me. I
Yes.
remember, as a teenager, having a bunch of men, I was 14, my church showed up at my house because I'd stopped going to church when I was 12 to lay hands on me and pray the demon away.
I just
Yeah.
threw up in my mouth. I
it
just
was-
threw up in my mouth. I just threw up in my mouth.
Disgusting.
Oh,
Yeah, it was really scary, and I actually ended up punching a guy.
good.
Yeah. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Good.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I don't want to give my hometown a bad name, right? There are good people there too.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just, I didn't fit. I stood out. And because I stood out and I didn't fit, I could never get anything right. And all I could think about was getting out of my hometown. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted as a kid. So my mom would tell this story about how when I went to kindergarten, the first day I came home crying and she was asking me what was wrong. I told her I didn't want to stay there anymore. I wanted to move back to Amarillo. And she said, honey, we're building a house here. We're going to stay here. And apparently I wiped my tears and shouldered myself up and said, well, then I'm going to college. And
Okay,
honestly,
yes.
my entire childhood, that was my dream. From the time I was 5 years old all the way up, what I was going to do is go to college and prove to people that I was, whatever I was.
Right. And get out,
Wow.
right? Like you knew
Yeah,
from
and get out.
5, like I needed
Yeah.
to get out of this space.
Yeah. Another thing that I
Yeah.
didn't know when I was younger, I didn't know I was autistic. I didn't know that I was bisexual either. And I didn't
Well,
have
yeah.
anybody to talk to about it. I just knew
Yeah.
that things like, Cyndi Lauper made my heart leap, and the lead singer of Eurythmics was really cool and I wanted to look just like her, and different things like that where my own sexuality was a little twisted in that regard. So when I went off to college, I was hungry for knowledge. I was hungry for information and all of this. And I jumped into college with both feet and loved it. Even the classes that I didn't particularly like, I always found something in them that was valuable to me. There was always a good reason for me to be there. I loved college. And so it was not strange for me to move into academia as a grad student teaching my own classes, and then as a college professor at a community college after I did my master's degree. My undergraduate degree is in creative writing. And after my undergraduate degree, I had married when I was 18, and to a man that I absolutely loved, but a man who had fought depression his whole life. And he died when I was 22. He finally lost his battle with depression and committed suicide. And so in between undergrad and grad school, I moved from creative writing into literature, looking for a little more, I guess, stability, not realizing that that's what I was doing. But I just needed to know that like I was going to be able to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Right. And I was messed up too. I was pretty messed up after that.
Yeah.
Having that happen when you're 22, I think about it now and I think about 22-year-olds. And of course, they look like children to me. They look so young. And I'm like, that was me. That was me.
Yeah.
As an undergraduate, I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get my PhD. And I just decided I was going to do that. And then in the process of working toward my PhD, I published my first article. I taught literature for the first time, and I went to one of the big conferences, and I hated all of it. I hated every single one of those things, which made me go, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? I don't know if I want to do this. And so, I went into some technology training and then accidentally fell into a professor position at a brand new community college.
That's a lot to okay, wait. What age are you at this point? Because I'm just like, that sounds like about 4 lifetimes worth of like trauma, and you were still just like in your mid-20s.
It's late 20s,
Okay.
30s. Yeah, at this point, like early 30s, it was, 29, 30.
Wow.
I actually have a question. I want to go back a bit
Of
to when
course.
you finally made it to college and, you know, the kind of community and connection that you were looking for before you got to college. What was college like for you as far as creating community for yourself and meeting new people who come from different spaces and different
Yeah.
places? What was it like for you?
It was definitely mixed. I left my hometown married, so I brought some
Okay.
community with me. My husband and my husband's best friend came with and moved to Houston with me, so I wasn't completely alone. And then the other thing that was really good about college is the place that I went in Houston had what was at that point called the honors program and is now the honors college, which is literally what they had recognized in the like late early 90s was that children that were gifted, that did very well in school, often tended to fail out of college.
Yeah.
They were
Right.
at-risk students. And so they treated us like at-risk students, right? They gave us our own courses. They really worked to forge community. And so I had all these courses where I would see people over and over again in those courses and
Okay.
have discussions, academic discussions with them. So they did a really good job of finding ways to connect people in
Yeah.
that
Good.
way. And that was very useful to me, very useful. But I was not good at being part of community. And that's nobody's fault at all. I mean, the
No.
autism, I think, probably has something to do with it. But
Mhm.
also, I was working my way through college. So I was working at least 25 hours a week the whole time that I was in college. I never lived on campus
Yeah.
because I was married and there wasn't any
Mm,
married housing. So I didn't really have the community experience that you think that I might have had. I had an academic
gotcha.
experience,
Okay.
right? I didn't really have my community experience until I got into college. And even then, it wasn't college that gave me that community. It was um a vampire LARP. So,
But I think
yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
important, right? Like,
Yeah.
because what you're talking about and when you were talking about growing up in a small town and how for some people that's fabulous, right? Like it's not a
Mhm.
judgment of good or bad. It's just a
Right.
is it aligned or not aligned? It wasn't aligned for
Right.
you. And it's where I keep going back to as you were talking is a sense of belonging, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Like it's just as you were talking about your childhood experience, it's like I think I would feel like I didn't belong anywhere in
Yeah.
that situation, right? Like, well, I was so where do I belong? I don't belong with these people, but I don't belong with these people, but these I'm not enough of this like I just where
Yeah.
do I belong? And then
Yeah.
it almost sounds a little bit like some of that was mirrored in college, right? And this is part of a bigger societal problem that we're having in 2025, right? Is that like people are hungry for community. People want to
Mhm.
feel seen and
Mhm.
understood by other
Mhm.
people, but a lot of us don't know how to do that or how to find it. I want you to get more into the vampire LARPing because I think it's so
Right.
cool that that was your
Yeah.
entry point because that community is so important. So can you tell us more about like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it started with online stuff. 91, 92, 93. That was kind of the beginning of the internet reaching out to universities. And I worked for an organic chemist, and he had an email, which was a big thing back then, right? And I used that email to get onto bulletin boards and news groups and things like that. And I met some people that also liked gaming. And so
Mhm.
gaming at the time, Dungeons and Dragons was the big thing,
Yeah.
but all
Right.
sorts of other games were coming out. And one of them that came out was called Vampire the Masquerade. And I loved that world. I read everything that I could about it. And by the time I got to grad school, I was playing it online with some people. And then I met some of them face to face in 1994. And that's when I really started to forge community because we all had the same interest in this game. One of my friends that I met invited me to this game to play a non-player character just to like help the plot along. And so this is my first time ever doing anything like that. I'd never done theater, I'd never done anything along those lines. And I had so much fun that I came
Yeah.
back and said, "Hey, can I make a character?" And from 1995 until about 2002, there was not a weekend that passed that I did not spend some time in that world. Whether
I
it
love
was
it.
dressing up and pretending to be the vampire, whether it was attending an event. I did volunteer work. I was the director of education for a little while for this volunteer organization that was worldwide. I mean,
So cool.
we had nearly 1,000 people come to our international convention. So it's not a
Wow.
small group of people. And
Yeah.
the world that we were playing in, this is called, there are different types of LARP. This is a parlor LARP, which means that we dress up and we play the characters. There are ones where people have what they call buffer weapons and they hit each other.
Yeah.
We don't do any of that because we're immortal beings who are, playing with each other over time.
Too highbrow for those types of shenanigans.
Yeah. It's, fun, manipulative, that kind of thing. And it was a great time. I learned how to be part of a group from that group. It was the first time in my life that I felt like I belonged somewhere.
Yeah.
And my closest friends, with the exception of the ones that I'm making now, right? All of my closest friends, the people that I've had long-term friendships with, all come from that.
I was going to say, you have to have a caveat to that. You can say your longest term friends, but your closest term friends don't all come from that.
I think that's important to say. Yeah.
But
my longest term friends.
Yeah, but I love that because I think for people listening, we all have very different stories, but we are, to Courtney's point, we're all searching for a space where we can feel like we belong.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you grow up and you don't have that, and then you get into, your early 20s and you're like, I still can't find it. I haven't been able to figure it out. There becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm never going to find my people. I'm never going to belong. I'm just some weirdo that doesn't belong anywhere, which is absolutely not true. You just haven't found the right people. And so I love hearing that, yes, I changed my environment, but I still was me. I still didn't find my people until, right, this next step, this next unsuspected, like you couldn't have planned for that community in advance. I love that it's like, it's never too late and you can't ever stop being you and showing up in spaces as you, because you're going to find your people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really important to point out is like, I found my people by being me. I didn't find my people by being somebody else. In grad school, one of the things so undergrad was a very, very good place for me. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. It was very powerful. And getting a degree in creative writing was honestly the best decision I could have made. It helped me learn how to take criticism. It helped me learn to work with other people. Grad school, I went into literature, and there were a lot of good and interesting people in the program. But all in all, graduate school, for the most part, tends to be a lot of people who honestly think that somehow or another they are slightly better than other people. And that was not me. My dad was literally a cowboy. My mom taught math at a high school in Boys Ranch. And I did not have those kinds of lofty illusions that I was somehow better than people. I just happened to learn well. And I think one of the reasons that I went into teaching and that I loved teaching as much as I did is because I recognized that maybe other people aren't as good as learning things from books as I am.
Right.
Maybe they aren't as good at showing it on tests, but it doesn't make them less intelligent and less capable than me. So I loved being able to take concepts that I got and help other people get them. That was that was divinity for me. That was touching God. And I still love doing that. I forget sometimes that because I have a degree in literature, because I went to all but dissertation, because I've spent so much of my time researching and reading and all of that, that I'm actually very well read and that I actually have a lot of knowledge in this head of mine, which is, one of the things that I like bringing to this. Every now and then people will say something and I'll be like, how can you believe that? And then I have to remind myself that they didn't spend 2 years in gender studies. They didn't spend 4 years studying rhetoric, deeply so that they can understand the kinds of things that they're seeing on the internet that mislead. And they don't have the time with tech companies to understand how the internet shapes and transforms what we see, so that we are living in these tighter and tighter and tighter bubbles that don't show us the differences that are so important to our understanding. Where I went to school, I went to the University of Houston. And one of the reasons that I'm really happy that I went there is because it's so diverse. One of my closest friends was from Trinidad. And I was the person who finally told her that when she stands this close, it's really uncomfortable for Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody had told her that. She just knew that everybody was uncomfortable with her.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, little by little, I found little weirdos like that that were weird
Yeah.
in ways, that other people didn't understand. And I figured
Yeah.
out what made us weirdos, and that made us closer.
Right.
And then I found a whole bunch of freaking weirdos in this gaming, and that
Yeah.
really kind of opened up the door. And then I got a job at a 4-year college. Should have been my dream job since I was 5 years old. It's one of the worst jobs I ever had.
Mm.
It was
Oh.
terrible. I was at an MBA program. We created this strategic communications program that fit in with everything else. So it didn't have its own classroom. It just merged with the rest of the program. And this was back in 2006. So that was, new and
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of what we did. But the job it was all people who looked down on people who went to public schools and who looked down on people that didn't come from an Ivy League and who thought I was way too young and way too unrefined to be a college professor. And it was miserable. It was miserable.
Yeah.
And from there I went into the corporate world. What would happen is the person that hired me, I do really well under. My favorite story is still like the first time that somebody gave me a chance to build my own program, that program made $1.5 million the first year, which is a lot for education,
Amazing.
right?
Yeah.
That's a lot for education. And I was very excited about all of that. But then what would happen is that boss would move or be pushed out. And whoever my new boss is, I was out within 6 months, whether it was they put me in an impossible situation, or they got rid of me, or I was not willing to put up with the way that they were treating me.
Yeah.
And moved on.
And I want to just double click. I'm like, we met in the corporate world. That's how we know each other. And it is, especially as a late diagnosed neurodivergent woman, like to your point, Sandra, you were diagnosed late in life with autism. I was diagnosed late in life with ADHD. And I think so much of it is internalized for so long that we think it's us, right? And then once we get some of those diagnoses and take some time and space and step back, you realize that like success in the corporate world has nothing to do with excellence. It has nothing to do with excellence. Success in the corporate world is strictly about compliance. It is about keeping the existing power structures comfortable. That is all. That's all.
Yeah. And I'm no good at that.
Nope.
I mean, quite honestly, I'm even in the game that I played, there are characters who try to appease others. There are characters who want to fight everywhere. And I was the character that manipulated everybody behind the scenes. In the corporate world, what I found is that people weren't interested in my expertise. They were not interested in the actual information that I brought to the table. What they were interested in is me doing what they told me to do. And if I told them it was a bad idea, if I told them it was not the good direction, if I told them this is going to take more time than they think, they didn't care. They just wanted me to do it.
Right.
And eventually the situation gets so that it is impossible. If you tell me that you want training to turn around a revenue stream in 3 months, it's never going to happen, right? Because education is a long-term game. It's always a long-sum game. It's never going to be something that is short-term gain. And right now, everything is about short-term gain. And it's such a loss.
Because our country is not about education. It's not about knowledge or education. I'm sorry, I'm going off tangent here, but I'm like, it's just about capitalism. It's just about the bottom line. It's not about any of the actual real stuff.
Everything is fast.
Right?
Everything needs to be shorter and shorter, and our attention spans are shorter, and things have to be more concise, and people are less interested in investing their time and energy into learning and experiencing things. And it's more like, I just want to know it right now. Just give me the summary of it.
I'm just going to Google it. And whatever comes up on Google is right,
But we programmed everybody this way, right? Like it's not everybody's fault that like everybody just got lazier, right? Like we just like we've programmed a whole society to need instant dopamine hits all the time. And they say, what is it that they say? Like we now live in an attention economy, right? Like that's why it's all the algorithms. It's about the attention economy and the hook and catching people, whatever. But Sandra, as you were talking about like your whole like evolution as a badass bitch, and I say that with love.
I take that with love.
But as I think about that evolution and as I think about kind of what some of your superpowers are, I feel like I see a thread between you not feeling seen and you not feeling like a sense of belonging and having this natural inclination to learning and academic understanding, right? Like that's just something you were born with. It's just one of your gifts. And the idea that you took those and were able to connect those things where you're like, I have this gift and I know what it feels like to not understand, to not be on the inside, to not get it. And what you do as a manager, I've seen this on the corporate side too, is like you look at each employee and handle them differently. So you're like, how do I need to translate this for you? That's a teacher. That's a good teacher, right? Where you're like, that's a good teacher. That's a good boss. That's a good leader who's like, I have knowledge. I have knowledge and information that makes sense to me. And I want to share it and impart it on other people. They're different than me. I understand that they're not extensions of me. So how do I make it sense for them? And most people can't do that.
That has always surprised me because it does seem to come very naturally to me. And it's something that I did even in like junior high and high school. I would help my friends who were not doing as well in school as I did do the things that they needed to do to prep for tests and to get better grades and all of that, because I recognized that some of my friends were so good at being social and I had no freaking clue. I'd freeze in society. So obviously they had something I didn't and we could share that and that would be awesome and we'd work better together that way. And then when I get a boss who's like, no, just do it the way that I say to do it and then it'll be okay. Just freaking like shuts down every single one of my skill sets. Because my skill set is in figuring out how to make it happen for others.
And you're very
how
good
to
at
get them to understand it. And if I can't work the way that I know how to work with those people, it's not going to happen. I would constantly be told by the people that worked for me that I was the best boss they ever had. Not just a good boss, the best boss they ever had. But the executives, aside from the one who hired me and who championed me, the executives rarely like me because I'm somebody who will come in and say, but have you thought about this? One of my most prime examples is we had a CEO who came in and said, we're shifting in the way that we're selling. This is how we're going to sell now. This is what we're going to do. We're good to go. Everybody's good and happy. And I'm the one that put my hand up and said, all things considered, this sounds freaking great. How are you going to prepare the sales team to do that? And what he said is, good salespeople will figure it out. And I said,
that's a
with
shit
all
leader.
due respect, that's a pretty crap way of doing it. You know, like if you want to scale this, then let's teach everybody how to do it. And of course, they didn't want to do that. And that was the beginning of the end for me at that company. And I always thought that if I could keep my mouth shut a little better, I would probably be able to stay longer. But that's never been one of my skill sets either.
But why would you want to?
Yeah,
why would you want to live like that?
Would you want to be somewhere with duct tape over your mouth watching them
this
shit up?
This is why I say I am totally embracing my Crone era. That like I was born to be a Crone. Born to be a Crone. Born to be the wise woman who has a head packed full of knowledge and who looks at you and figures out how to get that knowledge to you in a way that makes sense to you. And that helps you. But that's where I've been going my whole life without knowing it. And it feels good to be here now, to be out of the corporate world where I did have to conform in order to keep my job and to be doing the work that I know that I can do on my own while also really starting something like this where we are being loud, we are being direct, we are being honest, and we are being forthright about what the problems are in this world.
Totally.
That we need to start trying to solve.
Do you know what I think one of the most dangerous things to power is a woman who doesn't mind being unpalatable.
Yeah. Yes, that is very true. Absolutely. I have had CEOs call me the C word. I have had CFOs demand apologies from me after I told them that what they did was maybe unethical. I have had executives, I've had my own boss tell me, and this was something that was just amazing to me, say, you know, Sandra, I saw the email that you sent to this guy, and I love this guy. He's the kind of guy that'll stand up in a board meeting and tell everyone like it is and all of this other kind of stuff. But that's the kind of guy he is. So if you're going to get anything through to him, you're going to have to try to be softer. You're going to catch more flies with honey and blah, blah, blah. And in the middle of a sentence, without even thinking about it, I said, wow, that is misogynist.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly who I am.
Right.
Yep.
That is who I am. And he's telling me, but because you are a woman, I don't admire it in you.
I literally just wrote a post on LinkedIn about this because I'm so sick of, I still have a day job and I work in leadership development, and I'm so sick of the leadership advice women get, because it is the exact same behavior from a man is praised and women are told, tone it down, be softer, be more palatable. You make other people uncomfortable.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
still all based in bias and your feelings, your
Do you remember-
internal reaction.
Do you remember when Lean In came out?
Yes.
All right. So lots of people read that and everybody was like, oh, yeah, lean in, lean in, lean in. And I'm like, motherfucker, I've been leaning in this whole time and they fire me.
Right.
Right? They don't want to hear what I have to say when I lean in. What you're saying is lean in and tell them what they want to hear. And I'm not doing that.
Lean in to me was lean into the patriarchy. Lean
Yeah.
in to the system that's fucking us all. Like, I read lean in as fuck you. If you want to succeed, you have to play by their patriarchal rules and give up everything that you know is right to conform into that box. So I'm like, no, I will never be leaning in because fuck that shit.
And I've had executives, men and women alike, who have tried to teach me how to conform better.
That's
you know,
all corporate is.
And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I never could. And I'm never going to be able to.
No.
You're more
fortunate. I'm fortunate I had not had those experiences, because anytime I get pushed, I immediately am like, nope, we're going to talk about what this is and what I'm not going to do. Like, I always joke that I try to talk other people out of hiring me. And so when I come in and interview, it's always like, these are the things I'm not going to do. These are the things I am going to do. I get it if that's not what you want, but that's what I'm coming in with. So you decide if you want me or not. So now that you've transitioned, all these transitions, right? You've stopped apologizing for a bunch of shit when everybody made you feel like you were wrong when you were a kid, and you found your community and you started to flourish in that. You've dealt with a lot of bullshit from a lot of different companies who just don't get it and don't necessarily want to get it. So I guess my question is, for everyone listening, like, what would your advice be now that you've decided that world is not for me anymore? I'm embracing this Crone era. What does that look like for you, and advice that you can give to people who are maybe in that similar situation and ready for a change?
Yeah.
And can I ask if there was a tipping point that got you there? Like, if there was a moment that got you to that point of like, yeah, you know what? I'm tired.
I have had so many tipping points. So like my path is not this. My path is most definitely up and around and all this other kind of stuff, revisiting things and all of that. One of the things, actually, Courtney, I learned this listening to you. One of the things you were talking about is like learning to get in touch with your emotions as a bodily thing. Right? Emotions give us bodily feelings. Well, autistics, not well known for being in touch with their emotions. They often have emotions and often have them big emotions, bigger than a lot of people who are not autistic. And I am one of those, but I don't necessarily understand it. And one of the things that I did not understand for so much of my younger life is that the feelings that I would get of nausea, of displeasure, of being exhausted after work, of all of these other kind of things are signs, right? They are emotions. It hurts when you're being asked to go against your ethics. It hurts when you're being asked to bend yourself in a way that doesn't feel like right? It doesn't feel appropriate. It doesn't feel like what you should be doing because other people tell you that's what you should be doing. And I didn't listen to them because I didn't know. Now that I know that I'm autistic, now that I know that the corporate world, like, we've talked about this, right? I've worked on the inside of systems for over 25 years. And guess what? I've only watched it get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it is the worst I have ever seen at the top of our country and at the top of the tech companies that I've worked for and in top of the education that is going on. So I would tell people, here's my advice. If your stomach turns, if your head hurts, if you feel like, oh, that just doesn't feel good, or you're walking away from a job exhausted in a way that feels bad, that's a sign. Listen to it, because the moral injury that you are going through is going to follow you until you deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's going to harm you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be kind to yourself. Nobody else is going to do it.
They absolutely won't.
No.
Yeah.
You have
Anything else you want to share with us, Sandra, before we give our last fucks?
Oh, last thing that I will say is this. The one thing that I can say that I have learned in every single aspect of my life, whether it was in academia, whether it was in the tech world, whether it was in creative circles, is that difference is what brings joy. The weirdness in you, the spark of insanity that makes you you, is so valuable to this world.
Yeah.
Don't hide it. I have a tattoo. This is from Marianne Williamson. Your playing small does not serve the world. I don't know if y'all can see it.
Yeah.
Your playing small does not serve the world. Let that big you shine. Let that big weirdness shine. That's what the world needs more than anything else. Not conformity, difference.
Absolutely. I love that.
Thanks.
Well, you see, I told you she was a badass.
Right? I'm like feeling all inspired and shit.
Yes. All right. Let's do our closing segment of last fucks. There's always something that we want to save one last fuck of caring for. And so that's our last fuck segment. So Courtney anxiously wants to share her last fuck. Let's hear it, Courtney.
One today because it's
Yay.
woman-centered. Shocking. It's woman-centered. My last fuck today is for all of these incredibly brave, courageous, amazing Epstein survivors who are out there today giving their press conference, out there demanding truth, out there being stronger than most of the men in this country can be. And I am with them in solidarity. I'm so fucking proud of them. I give all the fucks to women of any abuse who are out there or who can't be out there. And I just want to shout them out.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I would say for me, along those lines, as far as hearing voices currently, as we speak, Border Patrol has been in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am, arresting people. As of Monday, they had arrested like 130 people. And they have been everywhere from elementary schools to outlet malls to they were at a hospital. They're at places where clearly they're not looking for targets that they have on an actual list who've done something wrong. They're just showing up and harassing brown people. And so there have been so many groups and organizations and individual people who are getting training, who are carrying their whistles around, who are recording and supporting and helping people pick up their kids and pick up groceries so that they can be safe. And so I give my last fuck to all the people right here in Charlotte who have been helping and supporting each other. And this population of people who have been so oppressed and continue to be targeted so tremendously by this fucked up administration. So you get all of my fucks.
Yeah.
That gives me a little bit of hope in that community. Also, did I not see, I like that every state kind of has their own flavor of how they handle these fucking horrible people, because I think I saw a video of y'all chasing people into the woods. And I'm like, listen, I'm here for it. Chase ice into the woods. Get the fuck out of here.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
how about you, Sandra?
Yeah, my last fuck's going to go to all of the protesters. I have the benefit of living in Portland, Oregon, the home of the protesting frog. There's a lot more that's going on there in Portland that is making it very difficult for ICE to hide behind things. You know, when you've got 30 people dressed in inflatable costumes having a dance party, it's hard to think of them as potential rioters. If tear gas comes out, which it does, we've got a video of some dudes spraying tear gas right into the vent hole of some frog-dressed person. Yeah.
Right.
So, and this is something that was happening when the Black Lives Matter protests were coming out too.
Right.
I mean, they literally like killed an entire park with tear gas and other things where people were protesting.
Yeah.
When the protests weren't violent, when the protests weren't dangerous, and the protests are not violent and dangerous now. You know, they are fishing they're ice fishing using sticks and
donuts,
string and donuts.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
Cannot, like, this is the way to approach authoritarianism.
Make
Right?
fun of them. We need to make
Yeah.
fun of them. Laugh. Anybody who supports them, laugh. You have a tiny penis. You must have
Yeah.
a tiny, tiny penis. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
You have such a
sure.
sad life.
Yeah. And it's worth it, like that laughter takes them down a notch. And each notch that we take them down gives us an opportunity to lift someone else up.
Yeah,
I like that.
absolutely.
That's my fuck.
Absolutely. Yes. So hug a protester.
Hug a
Yeah.
protester.
Yes, I love it.
Hug a survivor. Hug a protester.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing your story today. And I hope that everyone listening has had, I hope you've listened to all of our stories and you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about us and hopefully see a part of yourself in our journeys as we're continuing to grow and evolve and recognize all the things that we are tired as fuck about. We want to hear your origin stories. We want to hear what's going on with you, what made you the badasses that you are today, how you are continuing to grow into your badassery. So make sure to drop us a line, drop us a comment, like and follow the show wherever you're listening right now so that you continue to evolve with us. We can support you and you can support us. And we can't wait to share more Tired AF with everyone. And so we hope to see you all real soon. Thanks so much for listening and have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
We're tired as fuck, but we won't back down. We're tired as fuck, still owning this town. We're tired as fuck, together we ride. We're tired as fuck, fire in our eyes. We're tired but stronger, our voices collide. We're tired as fuck with the fire inside.